students demonstrating evidence of need for specialized instruction, or if the current interventions weren't successful. So they would wait till they go through these before they ever make the evaluation. And then the statement was made that at every grade level, there's a collaborative team meeting every week, and that a member of the special ed team is part of each grade level team to assist with Tier 1 interventions. So whether or not they're on IEPs, a special educator is on that team to assist with what could we be doing with everybody. Having said that, this was the school staffing in one elementary school. This elementary school, the Bowen Elementary School in Newton, all these staff worked just at that school. That school had 502 children in it. Just by way of, just to compare, Glover at this time has, glasses, Glover at this time has 620 students. Hollycott has 655. So this is a school smaller than both of them. And we see that they have a number of positions that we don't have in our district, but I want to say that the using all these positions allows them to do the RTI model. If you're going to break kids into smaller targeted groups, you need the teachers to facilitate that group, and that's difficult to do. And it's one of the reasons why the Tucker School, starting under Marcia Uretsky and now moving on with Elaine, that's why they've been able to do it. They've had the additional support of Title I teachers over there. So you take a look at what this school in Newton has, and that is pretty much indicative of how their district runs. Okay, so it's just another example.
Can I just interrupt? Yeah. How many students did you say that school had?
502.
But Glover, and you said Glover has how many students?
Glover has, hold on.
620.
So you don't
620. This is just Holly telling me off the top of her head.
Oh, Glover doesn't have 620.
Okay.
I think that's half that size.
No.
It's right in the front side, inside your packet.
Yep. So,
I'm sorry, but can I stop you right there?
yep, that's okay.
So there's a mention of co-taught classroom? I mean, is every classroom a co-taught classroom?
So they have, in that particular school, they have co-teachers at all grades, plus they have 1.8 special ed teachers on top of that.
Right,
So we could align it similar to how Glover runs, right? With the co-taught sections, well, they're missing one grade, which is at Collycott, but co-taught sections, and then they have additional SPED teachers.
Right, but that's my question. So are all their classrooms co-taught? So in other words, are there
They have one at every grade level, like
so
we do
there's
at Glover.
one co-taught in every grade level?
Exactly.
And this is a K through 5?
K through 5, yep. And so they have that at every grade level, plus 1.8 additional SPED teachers, plus a math coach and a literacy coach, and an inclusion facilitator, and a social thinking educator. This is a pretty rich staff, right?
Do they have an immersion program there?
Excuse me?
Do they have a language immersion program
I don't
there?
believe so. Not anything like that. So the next, continuing along the line with these questions, the next question was, so how does a district go about developing an RTI or MTSS system? And to the administration, how would we go about assessing it? That's a really big question, which is why I gave you the blueprint for the mass-tiered system of support. It's a really big question. And when you think about the fact that it starts with your whole district should be thinking this way, right? Then your whole school should be thinking this way. Then at each grade level, you should be doing this. It's a much broader question. So steps would include, however, the following. We would want to here in Milton first assess the efficacy of every one of our schools' current intervention approach. They are all using baseline data. They are all targeting interventions in some way or another, but it's kind of different at each school. We'd want to decide if there should be one district-wide RTI program, or do we want to have principals do their thing separately in their own schools? You heard that we're using the benchmark data to succeed with students. Do we want to go this route, or do we want to continue to let them do their own thing? We should be assessing what staffing needs we would have if we really wanted to implement this model. And we would have to provide some professional development and talk about how to creatively schedule kids. It's a big shift, actually, in practice. So, the next question was, in terms of the proposed plan where we talked about timing and budget, are we on schedule so that we're going to see any proposals for this year's budget cycle? And of the 3 themes that I recommended, which was program evaluation, additional staffing, and professional development, could you see them moving in parallel, or would evaluation and teachers and professional development, or one and then the other? So we talked a little bit about that before. And my response is really the same. How the district chooses to implement it is really, it's wide open. It's up to us. We could do it any number of ways. I think first the leadership team as a whole is going to need to talk about is this something they wish to do in all of their schools or in some of their schools? Because it's a large commitment of time and money if we wanted to shift into this kind of a full district professional development thing. Professional development is ongoing. It can occur on site. We send people to conferences, or it can be in classes that staff attend. We seek out and identify opportunities that meet our needs all the time. After this presentation and conversations, the superintendent asked me to reach out to CAS to see if we could find somebody to begin to do some professional development in universal design, and we've already started that process to see if we could bring somebody in this year to begin to bring some of that stuff in, because that's an ongoing process for us. And then one suggestion was that we may wish to wait until after we conduct our special education program evaluation before we think about moving in any direction. Let's hear how an outside objective party thinks we're doing. And then we are definitely going to need to assess the need for special education teachers annually based on IEP needs. And right now, we're already talking about the need for additional teachers for next year. So just to answer the question that was out there, last year we had 6 sections of co-teaching happen at the high school, 2 in ELA, 2 in math, and 2 in biology. I'm assuming the same is true this year because they didn't have any additional teachers to play with. We'd all like to see more. We all saw the science scores go right through the roof, and they are directly attributing that to having co-teaching in biology last year. So what are potential costs for program evaluation? That was somebody's. I asked my colleagues out there what quotes they've had just this year, and my colleague in Weston is actually trying to do it this year, and these are 2 quotes she's received this year. Their school district is smaller than ours, but I think those 2 prices represent the range. So you can go anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 depending on what you would like to do. Many of the people in my position do what I've been doing for several years, which is you can take a piece of your special ed program and evaluate it yourself and say, this is working, this is not, I think we should do this, and then ask for money to improve it. That's how we added the partners program, the extra addition to that. We looked at what our needs were, we presented it to you, people funded that, that's how we moved forward. That's how we added a transition specialist to our high school program for our MR kids because we saw that we needed that. What we're looking for now is a full evaluation, PK to PG, to see how we're doing with some of our kids, and that's going to cost more. So this is a range. This is a range. You asked some questions about what we're doing for social emotional supports, and that's near and dear to my heart, so I'm happy to tell you about that. So right now, every school has student support teams. And those are used basically if a student is struggling in any way, that student is brought forward to the student support team, and the team of people talk about what might work to help support that student. Every school has a functioning one of those. Every school in Milton has at least one school adjustment counselor, which is basically a licensed independent clinical social worker in our district. In the secondary schools, we also have guidance counselors that do informal counseling with kids. And we have been providing ongoing professional development to this cluster of people every year that I've been here, including in social skills groups and interventions, in functional behavioral analysis, in positive behavioral intervention plans. We've sent them to Michelle Garcia Winner's Social Thinking Conference, so we've done a lot of PD for this particular group. Also, every student has access to counselors. You don't need to be on an IEP to access a counselor in any of our buildings at any time. So students who may be demonstrating a problem would be brought to SST, who might discuss and develop a plan. Teachers or parents can identify their students' need for support for a counselor, and when kids get older, they can self-refer. So these counselors are available to everybody. Adjustment counselors, once they're on board with a case, they immediately reach out to any ancillary outside providers so that we have an integrated approach. If a student is working with somebody outside, the adjustment counselors will reach out and work with them as well. Adjustment counselors in all of our elementary schools lead social skills groups. This is after we sent them to Michelle Garcia Winner's conference on social thinking. They are all doing those groups in our elementary schools. Less formally, lunch groups occur in all of our buildings, and this is where students who may feel anxious can join a small group of their peers with their counselor and have lunch together and begin to learn how to interact in a more comfortable setting. Adjustment counselors complete functional behavioral analysis as needed in every building. They've been trained how to do it, and they do it. And they contribute to developing positive behavioral intervention plans, because those are things developed with the whole team working with kids. Counselors see most students at scheduled times, but every one of them is available for crisis intervention whenever something crops up. And to be frank, that also includes if a parent calls with a problem about the kid or something at home they want us to know. Our parents reach out regularly to the adjustment counselors, and they have really good relationships with families in Milton. A question was asked me about numbers of students on IEPs in the district. So I made this chart for you, and I want to explain. I'll give you a chance to look at it first. The IEPs, the number of IEPs and out-of-district students came directly out of my office because my very talented administrative assistant who retired, Janet Potts, kept very good records. So she keeps them month by month. She sends them out to all, how many IEPs and out-of-district we have, and this is what we've had over the years. You'll notice that we only have 3 counts for 504s, and I'll tell you why. I took over that role midway through the 12-13 school year, 11-12 school year, and when I took it over, I asked that we all use our eSped online program, which is the same one we use for IEPs. So from that point forward, once staff started using that program to record the 504s, I've got clear, good numbers. Prior to that, they were papers in boxes, and I never received from the previous owner of that any sort of long-range record keeping about how many. So this is kind of the best I could do for you at this point for the 504s. In terms of the numbers, those were total numbers of kids in Milton Public Schools, and when I was trying to go backwards, I took that number directly off the Department of Education website. The only one that's not off the website is this year's that I took off of our most recent enrollment chart. Okay? So that's where those numbers came from. I know for a fact the IEPs and out-of-district are absolutely right because Mrs. Potts was impeccable. This is whatever was recorded in DESE is what was recorded there. Yeah.
So can I just ask a question? From
Yes.
13 to 14 on the 504s?
Yeah.
That's an incredible jump.
This is what I think happened. Remember I told you I informed the staff about it midway through 2012. And at that point, as they were writing them, they started putting them on eSped. I don't think we were really up and running and doing them effectively until now. At this point, everyone's got them on eSped all the time now. So this is really a process for them learning how to do it this way instead of the old writing them by hand or typing them. That's really what I think. These will be more effective. The data keeping will be clear from here on out, but this is a transition period.
And then when we look at special education testing performance, that includes this whole group?
When you're talking about for MCAS achievement scores,
Exactly,
when they say
assessment.
students with disabilities, they mean kids on active 504s or active IEPs. They mean both.
Right, so in this case, it would be the 564 for 2014, the 47, and the 178.
It would be for, and those numbers, remember, are total in our district, not necessarily total taking MCAS, right? So remember, this is total numbers in our district, but grades K through 2 don't take MCAS. Certain grades in between don't take it, so we have to just be careful of how the numbers go, right?
Yep.
11th and 12th graders aren't taking it, right? Okay.
And then would you share about the out-of-district students taking MCAS?
Yes, I learned about the out-of-district students taking MCAS. When an out-of-district student, a Milton student who we have in a private day school takes the MCAS, their scores are not mixed in with Milton Highs, but their results do get integrated into our CPI. So it matters in there somewhere, but they don't reflect in Milton Highs. So sometimes you'll see, here's Milton's Highs CPI, and then it'll look a little bit different on the DESE website. It's because there, they didn't just use the high school, they added in our out-of-district kids. Okay?
Mr. Zulus?
So is, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
So is there anything we can conclude from these numbers, Karen?
Well, I know that Mrs. Sheehan is going to share with you a slide that actually shows the numbers over the years of special education students, and I think that's part of it.
Okay.
And so maybe you wait till that slide,
Okay.
you'll get a broader view.
Okay.
So you asked me what outside agencies we're partnering with at this point in time, and we're currently partnering with the following. We continue our partnership with the New England Center for Children, who at this point absolutely runs one of our elementary substantially separate programs for autistic children. They also consult with the second one, the Partners Program that we started. So remember, the second one is all of our employees, but they consult with, and we use their curriculum in that. The group, remember I told you the last time, maybe you remember, that I have been working with a consultant for some of my kids on how to use technology, specifically with special education students. This is the company. It's Augmentative and Alternative Communication Strategies. The name of her group is SWAC Consulting. And I think the SW at the beginning is because those are the initials of her name. Okay? So that's the consulting firm that I sort of have used for the past couple of years. We partner heavily with South Shore Hearing. They provide all of the equipment that we use for our hearing impaired children. They not only provide it, but they upkeep it when we drop it all off in the summer. They come in and do professional development for the staff at our school so they understand how to use it. And to be frank, because it's not an area of expertise for me, when I see a hearing and auditory report, sometimes I'll just call the woman there, Jen Meyer, who's fabulous, and she'll help me understand what that's saying. So they've been very good partners to us. We contract with the Clark School for the Deaf. We have a teacher of the deaf who comes and consults with the speech-language person and a few people over currently at the Collycott School. So she sort of comes in and talks about, aside from the equipment, what kind of teaching strategies might be important. This year, I've just contracted for the first time here in Milton a teacher of the visually impaired to do the same thing for a student at the Glover School. Basically come in, observe the student in class, take a look at the medical things about the student's eye condition, and make some recommendations for what might work. For a student who's not blind, can read, but has an odd visual impairment, so we have to have a specialist come in and look at our school and be able to provide some suggestions for staff. We partner with Easter Seals, who does a lot of our assistive technology evaluations. And we have an ongoing partnership with the Eli Center. Pamela Eli does a lot of social thinking skills. She's come in and done PD for us, school-wide PD at the Pierce Middle School. One year, I've had her come in and train my secondary school adjustment counselors in how to run social groups for older high school kids. She's done a lot of good work for us, and I'm sure we'll use her again, working with kids on the autism spectrum, sometimes our Asperger's kids who are much high functioning but still have social skills deficits. So those are our current partners.
A quick question. Who do we partner with around our kids on the more emotional behavioral side of things? We have an alternative program at Milton High School, but that isn't necessarily a special ed status,
Right.
correct?
It's for both special ed and general ed if the kid's
Right.
appropriate. So we don't have a formal partnership with anybody. There's a lot of resources out there if we need one. If I would probably first call South Shore Mental Health because they have a wide variety of people who can help you. But even they used to do a great deal of professional development in schools that they don't do anymore. So we don't have a formal partner in that area.
Thanks.
All righty. You asked me how the students are distributed in the classrooms. So I went to my principals to find that out. So at the elementary level, special education students are in all classrooms everywhere. Special education students who are able to access the curriculum but have very high needs for accommodations, those are the ones selected for our co-taught classrooms. And in schools that have co-taught classrooms, sometimes there's only one other English-speaking classroom in which to put the special education children who weren't selected for the co-taught. So I was trying to, for example, at the Glover. In the Glover School, if you're not placed in the co-taught classroom in grade 1, there may be only one other English-speaking classroom to place other kids who might be on IEPs for speech or other kinds of things. If it's not a co-taught sphere, then they have 2 or 3 other classrooms to choose from, and the students are spread throughout. They're not all kept in one or the other. That's at the elementary level. At the secondary level, I'll answer your questions, I'll finish the first. At the secondary level, IEPs dictate what kids need, whether they need a co-taught classroom, whether they need a general ed classroom with support afterwards. So the IEPs dictated at the secondary level, and as you know, they're separate classes. So even when Dr. Spalding's talked about her reading program and she said that was pull out, Mr. Zulis, you asked that question, it was actually another class. So it was a class they took instead of something else. They weren't pulled away from an English language arts curriculum to get that. They got the English language arts, and this was another class for them. So it's kind of different at the secondary level. But in terms of who gets into the team teaching co-taught ELA or co-taught math at both the middle and high school level, those teams make those decisions the previous spring. Other kids are mixed in everywhere. So what Dr. Spalding shared with me is they try to balance them, and these were her bullets about the ways that her team tries to balance kids. She tries to balance them by that there's a good mix of sending schools, because you know they come from 4 elementary schools to the Pierce, and she wants the mix up there. She tries to look at past history if certain students aren't good with each other for whatever kind of history might have been. She looks at teacher recommendations because her staff know what kind of kids work well with certain teachers. And it might include health or academic or social emotional needs. She tries to balance them, and it's thoughtful. It's a thoughtful process. You asked me the question, a big question about what it might look like if we had special ed and French immersion. And we've had so many different kinds of conversations about it, so I'll take a stab at it. Right now, they have 2 academic support teachers. And the way those women function for the French immersion kids is very much on a special ed model. If the kids, based on assessments they give, are functioning lower than they should, they try to pull them aside and give them some small group instruction, individual help. So that is already happening, but there's only 2 of them. And just FYI, special ed services are available in English to kids in French immersion, and then they have them. So beyond that, here's a few challenges that we need to bear in mind. Occupational therapy. It's a special ed service. It's typical. And it often is supporting fine motor development in terms of handwriting. But handwriting is different in French than it is in English. It's a whole different way that you hold the hand, and our OTs aren't necessarily skilled in it. But it's just something they brought up to me. These are challenges for us to consider when we think if we want to go down that road. In terms of speech language, they support both expressive and receptive language acquisition. That's what they're doing with children when they come out. Should we be pulling kids out of French immersion to get speech language in English? I don't have the answer, but it's a question that should be considered before we think about that. And in terms of academic supports, if someone is struggling in grade 3 or grade 2, and we want to provide them academic supports, does that defeat the notion of French immersion? These are questions that really have to be thought out a lot more when you go forward. So,
If I might,
yes,
I think
go.
you meant in grades 1 and 2, because
Yeah.
3 they're pulled out
Yes, yes, right. So,
or pushed in.
or pushed in. Well, usually it's pulled out because they can't push into, they can't understand if they're pushed
they
into the
have
English
English.
section of the day.
Should be
Right,
English in
thank
grade
you, Mary. So here's some thoughts. Some thought would be to formalize a pre-referral process that include RTI-like interventions, in the same way that we talked about using data to make decisions and first try small group work and then try individual work, and then if you get that far, then perhaps special education. That's one. The obvious one is to hire additional French immersion support people. We've got a variety of special ed people who push in and pull out for our kids who have special education needs. Perhaps we need to hire additional French immersion support people, and ideally, wouldn't it be nice if they also had a SPED background, just to think about how we might balance a program like that. It might be an idea to hire an OT and an SLP who are fluent in French, an OT who knows how to write in French. It's just an idea. And based on specific needs of cohorts of students, if you had a bunch of really struggling students at any one grade level or in any one school, could there be a consideration of having a co-teaching situation there with one of the French immersion support teachers with the regular teacher? These are ideas. I can only share with you ideas. I don't have answers for you, but I have ideas, and I think there's a lot of conversations that could be had in that area. So those were the questions that you gave me, and my attempt at answering them. Are there any other questions that you'd like to pursue?
Ms. Padera?
So I think one of the things you mentioned was some of the social skills groups and small groups, lunch group in particular. How do those students get into those? Who refers them? Is it parent, teacher? How do those students get identified?
So for some kids, if they need social skills groups because they have a social skills or communication disability, it's probably on their IEP. Other kids would be identified by teachers, parents, by the student support team. So it's an internal referral as well as a formal referral sometimes if these are kids who have definite social skills deficits based on an autism diagnosis or Asperger's, so either way.
Okay.
So it's probably not a good thing when I have more questions at the end of the presentation to answer questions than I did at the beginning. But I'll try to reduce it to just one. So you saw the presentation that preceded you. If we're trying to get to that same level of rigor with our special ed programs, that is identifying challenges and where students have particular needs, designing interventions to meet those needs, measuring the extent to which they're successful, that's, I think, where we're trying to go with regard to our special ed programs. Is it your recommendation that an overall program review would be helpful in getting us to that, or is it entirely unrelated?
I think it is not unrelated, but not totally related. I do think we should have a review. I think that practices in some of our different elementary schools are different in terms of how they make recommendations for services to be pushed in or pulled out, and I think it would be good to have somebody beyond us take a look at all of them together and see what that picture looks like to them. That's number one. The other part, just to speak to what you're alluding to, I want to remind you that everything they talked about happening is happening with special ed. And the next step really would be to say, I gave the example of the Pierce players, the 10 kids in grade 6 and did their improvement. It would be to look at those kids who are in that intervention and now pull out everyone that was on an IEP and see if that made a difference further. It's drilling down one step beyond in interventions that are already started. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's one step beyond. Yeah. And like I said, the state's not even doing that, and that's why I think it's fascinating.
But
It's a
we
good
have to do
question.
it.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea.
Mr. Zulus?
Just a quick one. Have we ever had a program review?
The district had one before I got here. And they had, I believe it was the Walker Partnership that did it. Yeah.
And you referred to it as a full review, but in my estimation, it wasn't a full review.
Yeah.
When was that? How long ago was that? Do we know?
I believe it was 09-10, because when I got here, it was just being delivered to the district, and it took a while afterwards. Yeah.
That really wasn't observations in classrooms, interviewing all staff, doing comparative.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to ask Ms. Downs and Ms. Sheehan to give you our diversity report. And the history behind this diversity report is the last page. On the diversity report, you'll see your own school committee policy. That requires each year a report no later than October 15th. And this report has grown from a 1- or 2-page summary to requests from school committee members for this level of data. And I want to recognize Ms. Downs, who took responsibility for last year's report, updating it, incorporating questions that the school committee had, and Ms. Sheehan for working with Ms. Downs on this presentation.
Thank you. So we have a lengthy report, and much of the information in this report has been presented to the committee already in the MCAS presentations. So what we did was we just condensed the report, and we're just going to present highlights of the report that we think might be points of interest. And yes, we did want to thank Mara for her support in creating this report. We would also like to point out that some of the information around SAT data, we have AP data and honors data will also be presented at a later date by the high school team. So we also are not going to comment on that data this evening. So looking at the first slide. What's going on with this? So this is the second year, I understand, of this report, and what we've done this year is added to the core value of respect for human differences. We've also added the high academic achievement for all students. We think that that's a very important component in addressing issues around diversity. We have a report on hiring practices, some that have been in existence for some time. A change this year is that we have developed a partnership with a minority recruitment organization. This is the last bullet here. This will assist the district in the identification and recruitment of minority staff. We will be able to post jobs on this website. We will be able to access candidates, potential candidates for positions on this website, have access to career fairs and so forth. So we're looking forward to seeing if this is going to be an effective tool in increasing the diversity of our staff. So the district has been working in partnership with the Citizens for a Diverse Milton for many years. Together, the CDM and the district have developed goals, and the goals include that students and families of all racial and cultural backgrounds will feel welcome, that diversity is recognized as an integral component of an excellent education, that staff and faculty reflect the racial and cultural composition of the student population town-wide. Another goal, all students are provided with an environment that enables them to work to their fullest potential. Students of all racial and cultural backgrounds participate at all academic levels. And finally, the curriculum reflects the broad diversity within our local, national, and international communities. We also have school-based diversity committees. They also focus on these goals. The school-based diversity committees meet twice a year with the other school-based committees in the district. Twice a year, we meet with the Citizens for a Diverse Milton. Our first meeting is actually October 23rd. And we have had members of CDM and our administrative team who have met to plan this event. And we come together, and it's a goal-setting opportunity, goals that we should see in our school improvement plans. We also look at some of the research. We look at articles. We have interesting discussions about what members can bring back to their school-based committees and what kinds of initiatives can result. You do have in the report a summary of events that are occurring at all of the schools that I think you may find interesting.
If I might, Ms. Sheehan, so a goal for, not to speak for CDM, but every month the assistant superintendent and I meet with the leadership or several members from Citizens for Diverse Milton, and one of Citizens for Diverse Milton's goals have been to strengthen the individual schools' diversity committees. And to that end, Citizens for Diverse Milton have each taken a role and become members on the individual schools' teams. These teams are made up at the high school of students, staff members, and parents, and at the elementary and middle, staff members and parents. And so for our principals, seeing every month, they meet with PTOs, site councils. They now meet every month with their diversity committee, and they share these data presentations with all of their committees. They are preparing their school improvement plans, and they bring them to all three committees. So that has been a huge goal for CDM to really understand that this kind of work begins and is meaningful at the school level.
Thank you. Wait a second. We have the wrong. No, that's the wrong. Wait a second. Oh. So we have the wrong presentation in here. If you could bear with us, we have our condensed version also on the desktop, and I think that we have the full diversity.
You found it.
Thank you. Yes, thanks.
We're going to start with the staffing data. This is a 4-year look at each of our schools, and the bars represent the number of staff members, and this includes all staff, not just the teaching staff. The staff members who are non-white. So as you can see, the purple is the most recent data. And at the end, there's a district-wide and a statewide comparison. This next slide just focuses on teaching staff. And again, we have a 4-year look. And this is the percentage of male teachers within the school. I think you can obviously see at the elementary schools, the percentages are lower, gaining at the middle, and obviously at the high school, we have the largest number of male teachers.
So looking at student enrollment data, we have data over 4 years for our non-white students. Looking again at individual schools, district and statewide data. And this is just looking at our 2013-14 school year data. A breakdown of race and ethnicity. We have, we notice on this slide that all of our schools show an increase in the number of students whose first language is not English. And we see that this is this increase is consistent at the state level as well. Our low-income student numbers have decreased in all schools across the district, while they've increased at the state level.
Can I just interrupt there? That's pretty significant, at least visually a significant difference. I'm wondering if our efforts to, because this comes off of the free and reduced lunch, I think in years past we've really talked about that and how families might avail themselves of you know, getting some assistance if needed, and I'm just wondering if we might want to revisit that, because that, especially with the trend in the state. And granted, I don't know the demographics of the town or whether those have changed significantly, but it looks to me like it might be worth looking at.
This is actually a separate data category than free and reduced lunch.
So where does this?
This is also off the DESE website, but the category is low income. There is a separate category for free lunch and reduced lunch, but this is not that.
So this is greater than that, or it's like, are all free and reduced in?
The free and reduced slide may be in there. If it's not, we can add it.
No, it is.
Okay.
But our low income, is low income, does that include free and reduced lunch? Or is low income a different category than free and reduced lunch?
It's actually a different category. Free and reduced lunch is self-reporting. And so those are people who report themselves, and as we've talked about before, there's minimal checking done in terms of that. Low income is taken from tax returns and various points of an actual income data collected by the state. So they're collected in different ways. There's certainly overlap, but they're different metrics.
Got it.
And there is some talk at present about how to align them a little better at the state level. There's some talk about changing the way that the free and reduced lunch is actually counted. So, but there is some correlation, but they're not, neither is a subset of the other.
Got it. And just to note, I don't know whether you're getting to that slide, but free and reduced also goes down fairly
Yes,
significantly. So again, I guess, I think.
It's a similar trend.
Yeah,
Yes.
my
That's
comment
why
may
we
be
didn't
more
include it. It
appropriate
was-
to
yes.
free and reduced lunch.
Most often, we report on our low-income subgroups, so we just thought we'd just include this, but definitely a similar trend. So for our special education population, the numbers of students with disabilities has decreased over the four-year period.
So can I just jump in there as well? Because if we compare that to the chart that was given here, that's not necessarily supported. So I just want to make sure whatever the category of reporting that we're talking about, that we're using the same data points. If my math is correct, this might just be students with IEPs?
Yes.
And not include the 504s, right? So, and out of district too. So we either make a note on it, do you know what I mean? So that we make sure that when we look at data, it's comparing apples to apples to apples.
And this reporting is becoming really important. This is our SIMS data. This is the data that comes from the state. Eventually, this data for every teacher is tied to every student. And so when we submit this data for our students and our teachers in our October 1 reports, it has to be exact.
So in discussions with Ms. Clasby about reasons for the decline in the number of students with disabilities, we have considered that looking at the eligibility criteria and implementation of IEPs and following the process for identifying students, we believe that that has improved, that process. We think that may be a factor. We also believe that the increased supports, particularly at the elementary level, have been a factor in reducing the number of children who may have once been identified as needing special education because there were not other supports in place. And we also believe that the student support team process of pre-referrals has also improved, and that teachers are leaving the student support team meetings with a plan for interventions for students. So it is sort of a variation of an RTI model, and we believe that that is also a factor in reducing the number of students who are recommended for evaluations and ultimately specialized instruction.
So Janet, did you say that you think the difference is that this is just IEPs?
Yes.
But even if it's just IEPs, it doesn't match up with the numbers that Karen had. For example, so 11 was 649, 12 was 580, 13 was 538, 14 was 564. So it's going like that, not on a decline straight down.
So I don't know what data she, where she said that she got her numbers from her office data, and she said that it was consistent
Right.
with the DESE reporting.
So what was the source of your information?
This is also, this is the DESE website.
So this goes through last school year, where the previous report goes to this year. So if you stop at 2013, the 13-14, that's where that stops, I think, if I'm reading this correctly. So
So you have an additional year's data.
Yeah, you're correct that it went from 580 to 538, but now we're saying it's going back up to 564 based on what the previous presentation. So
Can you go back to that slide? So what they're calling 11 and what Karen's calling 11, I assume on Karen's chart, those are fiscal years. Do you think that's right?
They're academic years.
Right.
Right.
So 11 ends in June 11. 2011 ends in June 11.
No, I think it might be the other way around. So the 2014 in the special education report is 14-15. It's
the way
this
I'd read it,
year.
too.
So 13 is 13-14, which is the last entry on this chart, if that makes sense.
It does.
Because in this report, we're always reporting on the previous year, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but we had, no, but this is the best chart.
All right, well, we can figure that out. It's,
I'll go over this
Yeah,
data
we'll take a look at that.
and her data, but I read it the same way Ms. Kelly reads it, that her presentation included this year, and the data that we're reporting on is last year, because this year's data was put in as October 1 data and isn't out.
Another thing that we noted was that the lack of change at the state level, we are not sure if the state actually had that data. It doesn't look like it is a realistic representation. We found that in some of our other charts that you might see in other categories in your packets.
So we're going to take a look at the athletic data now. I reviewed this afternoon with Larry Rooney, and he was pretty much in agreement that these numbers looked correct. This is a 3-year look at the district. We have 2012-13 in the upper left, 2013-14 in the upper right, and we only have fall data for this current year. We don't normally include the current year's data in the report, but we had it, so we thought we'd just have you take a sneak peek. So what you're seeing is the number of minority students are in red, and the non-minority students are in blue.
So this fall's participation is more diverse.
Yes, it's been increasing for the past 3 years. This fall, obviously, we only have the fall season, but the numbers have grown. More participation by minority students.
More students, interestingly, more students out this season and over the last 2 winter seasons, am I correct?
You mean fall?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
fall.
Fall.
Okay. Yep. This next chart is just singling out the fall season to take a look at how it has shaken down over 3 years. Again, you're seeing an increase in minority participation year to year. This is winter season. We only have 2 years of data. Pretty consistent over 2 years. And this is the percentage of athletes who are on free and reduced lunch in blue compared to those who do not receive free and reduced lunch in red. This is this fall's data with the same comparison. And this is from last spring's data presentation. This is a look back at 2013-14. Those sports who have fewer than 3 athletes in the minority category have an asterisk. Again, we only have fall data for 2014-15, but I think that's included on the next slide. And crunching the numbers, we did notice each sport has increased its minority participation.
And finally, as with all of the data that we look at and that we analyze, we consider moving forward what the resources would be that we would need. We consider our advancement initiatives and the advancement budget moving forward, and we will do the same with this information.
And also, Chairman Walker had asked me to schedule our athletic director, Larry Rooney, to come to a meeting to speak to the issues that were brought up when CDM presented last June regarding the diversity on individual teams. So Larry Rooney will be presenting at one of our future meetings.
So, question for the assistant superintendent and the superintendent. What are the areas that you think require some attention, if any, and what actions do we plan to take?
I do think that there has been discussion about how to increase the numbers of students participating in sports. That is a goal that has been set that I think Larry Rooney can address as far as how he is looking to increase the numbers of minority students participating in district sports. We've had some conversations on the leadership team, but I do know that is a goal of the CDM as well this year. Of course, the focus on our subgroups, I think, is something that is also one of our goals.
I'm sorry, Jane, can you say that last thing? What you just said?
Oh, the focus on our subgroups. The subgroup data is something that we're very much committed to, and looking at interventions and supporting students.
And if I might, our staffing of teachers and support in each school, and Janet Sheehan has already made some movement towards partnerships, looking into job fairs, but we have to, again, working on our numbers for this year, look at the diversity in each of our schools, not to go backwards, but to increase.
We've also come up with some ideas about our hiring process and how we can keep track of the numbers. So we're developing a sort of a hiring packet for principals so that when they make a recommendation to central office and they send up a candidate, with that will come the numbers of candidates who were interviewed and the number of minority candidates who were interviewed. And so we think that will probably promote awareness and give us additional data on hiring.
Bagley Jones?
I think that is a great idea in the way that you organized some of the data tonight in terms of showing, at least in the athletics, the year-to-year, fall to spring, every single category like that. I think that is really powerful to see, and you can see where progress is made and where progress still needs to be made, and the same thing. Keeping track of that data, I think, is an excellent idea because it's right there. So, thank you.
Sheridan?
And I just want to add that this is just a portion of this whole, this whole report. There's so much more information in here that the people at home watching are not seeing that, as you detailed, will be articulated in more depth at other, in other presentations. And I do want to restate what you just said about the fact that this work really is the work that happens throughout all of the other presentations that we've seen. When we talk about our subgroups, we're talking about, you know, the elementary presentation we saw, the middle school and the high school. It's also involved in the subsep and the special education presentation that we saw. So I feel like these are just more and more layers of data and information that we're looking at, and I think that that's a good thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is the meeting that we always report out on the 15-16 anticipated field trip list. So Assistant Superintendent Sheehan has taken over that responsibility. You have two handouts in your packet that she's going to detail for you. One is your policy, and then surveying all the staff, her update on the field trip requests.
So after a couple of communications with district staff, this is the only field trip proposal that has been submitted at this time. And I understand that last year that there weren't any field trips that were approved that were out of state. That was the information that I had. I could be incorrect, but I believe that was the case. So Dr. Burdette submitted this proposal, and the proposal includes all of the questions that are requested in accordance with the school committee policy. So those that are not answered in depth are because she does not have that information yet, but we'll provide that as soon as she gets it. So that it's as it stands and for now, but she will be happy to provide additional information as it's available.
I have a motion for approval.
So move. Second.
Moved by Ms. Sheridan, seconded by Mr. Zulus.
No, well, no, I was
No?
actually had a question. I think Becky seconded. Did you second?
I was
Not
saying
at all,
this somewhere.
but
I'll
I shall second it.
Seconded by Ms. Padera. Mr. Zulus.
Afraid you were asleep over there.
I'm trying to find out what grades these students are in. Is it 11th and 12th, or?
Milton High School, it's all
High
grades.
school.
So it could be all schools.
Ninth
All
through
grades.
Is it
9
9
through
through
12?
12?
Or 12.
Yeah, it's a band trip.
Oh, it's a band trip.
Yeah.
Just a music department. Oh, this year, you probably this year.
I'm sure they could look for chaperones. Maybe they'd let you come if you.
Ms. Kelly. Oh, Mr. Zulus talks to himself.
Just on the price, $525 is the highest it will be, and then the fundraising might lower that, or?
I can speak to that. Sorry, maybe I can speak to it. I don't know if my voice will last, but every year they do fundraising opportunities, and the students that participate get a portion of the fundraising that they do that goes to their actual ticket price. So they have lots of opportunities to lower the price of their
Got it.
ticket.
Thank you, Ms. Sheridan.
Oh, you're welcome.
And on behalf of the school committee, we, and Ms. Kelly, we give a very strong message about these field trips, and you've always spoken up about the fundraising efforts and that no one feels excluded.
On the motion to approve, all in favor?
So moved.
Yes, we're past that.
I'm tired.
Wait till we get to the resolutions.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. We'll be sure to get more details to you as they come.
It's like coming up.
the revised 15-16, the FY16 budget calendar. Ms. Kelly or Mr. Pavlicek?
Ms.
Mr.
Keller?
Pavlicek, why not?
Dr. Pavlicek.
Dr. Pavlicek.
Dr. Pavlicek.
All right. You have a budget calendar in front of you that lists our meetings for this fall and our suggested dates for trying to get first the advancement budget into finance and then to the full committee, as well as working on the fiscal 16 budget. So it's just a matter of trying to fit all those different discussions into an existing schedule and still making it to the warrant committee in time for middle of December.
Kelly?
So just for clarity, we have a school committee meeting the 29th of October, is that correct?
No.
Okay. Because that's what it says on this calendar.
Our next meeting is the 5th.
5th of November.
It says the 29th.
I don't know why it says the 29th, but in case we weren't planning on presenting anything on the budget on the 29th, so it's irrelevant to the calendar, but no, it shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Do I have a motion with that correction?
I just have one other question, sorry. It says our school committee meetings go from 7 to 10. Does that mean we're supposed to stop at 10?
Yes. Yes.
I'd be willing to entertain
Yes.
that as a requirement, particularly tonight.
Just want to clarify.
That would be awesome.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I recommend that we approve this budget calendar.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Kelly, seconded by Mr. Zulus. On the motion, all in favor?
29, cross it out, yes.
Opposed? Abstained? Ms. Bagley Jones, are you in favor of that?
No. We raised our hand.
But like
We were
this.
going like this.
Late at night.
Don't get too picky.
Okay, right. Okay, I need to know, is it a no vote, a yes vote? Okay,
So in
we
closing,
really need to move this along.
you had Matt tell you about the boosters swing for sports, so I want the viewing audience, still viewing, to circle
Unlikely.
October 21st at Wallaston Golf Course. Very briefly, on October 23rd, a very special event at PS School. They have a tradition of recognizing all of the students who have earned perfect MCAS scores, and they have a catered luncheon. And I can tell you from personal experience, students have mentioned it to me when they're in high school, that they were part of the 280 luncheon. The Monster Dash you heard about tonight, Fall Town Meeting, October 27th. Your Athletic Hall of Fame, you'll all be invited on November 1st. Mike Goodless and his board has done an unbelievable job, and that is a heartwarming night. Circle on your calendars, November 6th at 7 o'clock at night, November 8th at 2 in the afternoon and 7 at night, Milton High School's Legally Blonde presentation. Conferences are coming up for the viewing audience. They'll hear from their principals and their teachers. And in closing, I just want to note that we have hired the security guard here at Milton High School, and we have communicated via email with all parents and guardians of students who are in the applied music or adults who are in our adult education. But just to reiterate the message, that as of 3:30 every day, the front door of Milton High School is locked, and we are using the field house door as the entrance and the exit door. So that's going to be a habit that we're working on with all children and adults and staff. And I would ask anyone viewing who uses Milton High School to just make a special note that the fieldhouse entrance is the entrance that we now use to come in and exit the building for all activities Monday through Friday nights from 3:30 to 9:30.
Ms. Sheridan?
So I just was wondering if someone could explain why the back door was chosen and not the front door, as it seems like it's a perfect drop-off area with lighted parking spaces available? Just to clarify, sorry.
Let's just make sure we don't venture into deployment of security personnel, but go right ahead.
Because we, with athletics and the movement in and out of the school, that's really the best door to have everybody go in and out of, if you want to have one entrance.
Okay, Chairman's report. No follow-up, but just a note to the superintendent and myself, we should make sure that any outstanding items from fiscal 14 didn't fall off, because it looks like we reset the list for 14-15. Let's just make sure we didn't miss anything. Superintendent's evaluation, actually, I'm going to go first, and then you go.
Good.
So I sent out an email, which I'm sure that most of you haven't had a chance to look at because it was only early morning. You need one more of those. But the process that we'll be using this year is a lot more rigorous and a lot more detailed than we've been used to. So what you have in front of you is the form that we'll actually be filling out. It's called the End of Cycle Summative Evaluation Report. And as you see, we will be asked to rate the superintendent in 3 goal areas: professional practice, student learning, and district improvement, and then in 4 standard areas. And the standards each have indicators. I didn't copy the rubric for indicators since it's a very, very large document, but I gave you a sample. So what you see in terms of the rubric sample, which is labeled Indicator 1B and Indicator 1C, is that under instructional leadership, so if you turn to page 5 quickly, I'm sorry, page 6, you'll note that we're asked to rate the superintendent on each one of these indicators, and these rubric examples give some guidance as to what the performance might look like for each rating. So it gives us some idea of what unsatisfactory performance looks like, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. And in each of the boxes where we're asked to rate, so as I said, we're asked to rate 3 goal areas, 4 standard areas. You'll note that in the comments section, and again, I'm on page 6, that if you decide on either an exemplary, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory rating, then comments are mandatory, but are recommended for any rating, any overall rating. So I would encourage you to take a look at the extensive binder that we got from the superintendent, any other notes that you have been compiling over the year, and complete these forms by next Wednesday, at which time you should send them back to me no later than the 22nd, which is next Wednesday. I will turn those around. I will incorporate all of your information in a summary evaluation and get it back to you no later than the 29th. And then on the 5th, at our next meeting, you'll use the document or summary form that you've created as talking points. We'll have a public discussion about the superintendent's performance, and then we will discuss, if need be, and then vote on the summary evaluation that you've also received.
Can you just repeat those dates?
Yep. So this form, back to me completed by the 22nd, I will send you a composite form which incorporates all of your feedback and information by the 29th, and then the following Wednesday, November 5th, is our next meeting, and we will have a public discussion about the superintendent's evaluation and vote on the summary evaluation.
So for the formative evaluation, we
Yep.
were required to share our feelings publicly,
Yeah.
share our observations, so that's different for the summative?
No?
So if we're submitting them to you before we say them publicly, then we are, because we're not each giving our own so-called evaluation.
We'll be doing that publicly on the 5th before we finalize the evaluation document, which I think is entirely appropriate.
So you're going to compile all our comments, and you're going to read them?
I'm going to compile all your comments. You're going to actually talk about the document on the 5th, but I will also have compiled all that information into a summary document so we can vote on it on the 5th.
Okay.
Can I just clarify? So you're giving us our things back so that we can
Yeah,
have...
well, you will have them. You will have sent them to me. So.
Yeah, but I'll send them to you, and you're going to give them back to us,
You'll have the document that you created,
right?
also the document that I created by
Right.
the 5th.
Because you're giving it back to us.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
But we are talking.
To Ms. Sheridan's question, if you fill out these forms and submit them to Mr. Walker, they are public documents.
Right.
Under the open meeting law. So he may compile them into a summary and submit them for talking, but all of the individual documents are public and open to anyone who wants them. That's explicit under not only the Mass Open Meeting Law and the evaluation for superintendents. So they are, whatever you fill out is a public document.
Ms. Kelly?
And the forms you emailed us we can enter it online, right?
Yeah.
And then just send a copy?
Correct.
Get it.
I have one thing to add, if I might.
Okay.
Mr. Walker was good enough to, if I wanted to say anything. One, with the new evaluation tool from the Department of Education, we implemented that with the teachers this year. And so it helped me and frame with our administrators, and we have done training with all of our teachers. And so it was interesting that we have selected a piece of software that this binder that you received, the teachers enter all their artifacts via email to their administrators. Going forward, that's what I'll do. There are school districts that haven't purchased the piece of software. We interviewed a candidate for assistant superintendent, and in his district, they brought home the binders every weekend. Dr. Spalding said, I'm not bringing home 10 binders every weekend. So I want to thank you for accepting those binders. And if you look at what Chairman Walker gave you, this piece of evaluation tool, you'll see that to assess the progress towards the goals is really all of the support material that I've given you, the professional practice goal, the student learning goal, and the district improvement goals. That's really the top of this presentation. That's really, and then these standards, instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. That's to Chairman Walker's point, that it's very structured, and it provides you a huge number of indicators in that area, every aspect of those qualities that you could attempt to evaluate. And so I'm not going to put it up on the screen. It's late tonight. I've just prepared you, and we'll put it online tomorrow. Just a summary of what brought us here tonight. And it really just summarizes what Mr. Walker just said to you about the two aspects of this evaluation tool. And again, I have one more section to forward to you tomorrow to put inside your binders to complete those artifacts that going forward, when we're doing this process, will all be sent to you electronically.
Mr. Zulus?
So the binder, and maybe I didn't track it well, but I didn't find that it really exactly tracked this, but maybe...
Tracks the top, you know what it tracks?
Tracks just the top.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you look...
Not the sub.
Well, yes, it does track, if I might see one.
Some of them did, but some of them did, and some of them didn't.
Ms. Sheridan, is that one of the binders?
It's in, this is the binder. Yeah, it's embedded. I mean, it's not,
Well, you know what, I have another part that I gave you at the mid-cycle, so I'll send this to you tomorrow, and it tracks perfectly.
Oh, I have it.
Yeah, but this is an updated one. So the two things that I really owe you is this, what I gave you at the mid-cycle, that will track to every heading, exactly from here, and I have one insertion on K-12 STEM.
Okay. MASC resolutions, I'm going to defer to our delegate for discussion and recommendations.
Okay.
what time is that?
I know you guys were all waiting for this. Resolution 1, greater transparency and accountability for out-of-district placement costs. Any discussion?
I'd like to hear your recommendation.
Am I right, you want me to recommend what you should vote?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you how I would vote. I was going to vote.
Good
in
enough.
approval. I was going to vote in approval of this.
We need to make a motion so we can move this along.
All right, I would recommend that we vote in approval of Resolution 1. That good for you?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Padera, seconded by Ms. Kelly on that motion for approval on Resolution 1. All in favor? It's unanimous.
Okay, Resolution 2, universal quality, pre-kindergarten access in Massachusetts. You can imagine you know that I'm going to vote, I would recommend approval for this one. So I would move that we vote in, approval of Resolution 2.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Padera, seconded by Ms. Bagley Jones. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous.
Resolution 3, charter school reform. This one, actually, I had said, no, I would recommend a no vote on this. But I don't know how others feel.
Because?
Well, it's, as I think back in the last time we worked on these resolutions, charter schools don't really necessarily affect us in Milton. I know they affect other places, but since we're representing Milton and we're not really affected by it, I didn't find it of great importance for us.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yes, I made the motion.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Padera, seconded by Ms. Kelly. Ms. Bagley Jones?
I do agree that we don't have this in Milton, but it doesn't mean we couldn't have a request for it, and I guess I just have some, I would, at the very least, I would not vote on this, or I would support what their motion is for the resolution, because I just feel like charter schools really would undermine us if they were ever to come here, and that they undermine in other communities, if that's not too strong of a word.
Dr. Pavlicek?
Just as a point of information, we do lose children to charter schools every year. It's not a lot, but we do, through the cherry sheets, lose money from local aid to charter schools. We have probably half a dozen students in charter schools at any given time, generally in Boston.
I knew that.
But we are not unaffected by them. We are not dramatically affected by them, but we are not unaffected by them.
Okay, good to know.
Would you know how much we lose from that, approximately?
It's, well, it's probably $50,000 a year.
Okay, all right.
I mean, the money is very important, and that was a great question and a good answer, but it's also the accountability about when you're in a charter school, the attendance, the expulsion, all of those things that we have to be accountable for, and charter schools don't. So I guess philosophically, I would not be in favor of this.
You would not be in favor, or you would?
I would want to say
Yes or no?
You would want to vote yes
Thank you.
in opposition
Thank
to
you.
what Becky's saying.
Thank you.
There
And
you go.
I will echo that sentiment. Just one of the bullets that is here included says require a strong provision to prevent skimming and suspensions from charter schools that return students whom they no longer wish to enroll to the sending districts. It's a practice that charter schools do on a regular basis, and I am not in favor of it. And anything that would support doing away with that, I will support, so.
Okay. Well, I think
That's just one bullet, so.
based on the new information and discussion, I'd like to amend the motion to say that we should go out in favor of this.
Okay.
I'd like
Second.
Thank you.
Amended motion made by Ms. Padera, seconded by Ms. Bagley Jones. Ms. Kelly, you're...
That's really not an amended motion. That's a withdrawal of the original motion and a submission of a new,
Yes.
I believe.
That's what should, yeah.
Neither here nor there.
I'm not even going to engage. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? 4-2. Motion carries.
That was a close one. Okay, I'm on the next one. Fingerprinting. Yeah, I think that I'm definitely in favor of this resolution, so I would recommend and make a motion that we vote in favor of it.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Padera, seconded by Ms. Bagley Jones. Any discussion? Ms. Kelly?
Just my ignorance, establishing DESE as the clearinghouse for all background checks for all educators? What's the clearinghouse now? Does everybody use their own, I mean, what's the process now? Well, how would this change it, I guess?
I think
ahead,
what
Mr.
they're trying
Pavlicek.
yeah.
Dr. Pavlicek?
Currently, new hires have to be fingerprinted, and as of next year, all licensed staff will have to be fingerprinted. And currently, the process is you go to a fingerprint center, you pay your fee, you say which school or which district or districts you want your report sent to, and the individual districts then make a determination as to whether or not you are suitable to be hired. If you were to go to another district, the second district can ask the first district, did you find this person suitable or not? And they can say on such and such a date, we found this person suitable or unsuitable, and that's all they can say. The second district can accept that or not, or if they don't, they say, go pay for another fingerprint and go do it again. And that way they'll see the actual full report. So it's very much district by district. There is no, everyone makes their own determination on what constitutes suitable or not. And for someone who is in, potentially a substitute teacher in multiple districts, they might get varying results from different districts. So one district could say you're suitable, another district could say you're not suitable, so you could teach in A but not B, for instance. I think the intent here is to have sort of a single place where these results are sent, and a district can say, does this person have a suitability determination, and go from there.
Good idea.
But the big part of this, isn't it, that this would be, fingerprinting would be part of teachers' accreditation. So instead of the district paying for it, wouldn't it be part of their accreditation fee?
The teachers pay for it now.
Teachers pay for it now, but it would be taken care of in that term. What they're saying is, teachers will be fingerprinted upon their initial licensure. So that'll be part of the licensure process instead of us having to make sure it's done.
Yeah, now it's part of the hiring process.
Right, so this would be part of this process, which would make more sense.
You can be licensed without being fingerprinted until you're actually hired somewhere, and then you can't be hired without being fingerprinted.
Right.
So you have to have a suitability determination first before you can actually hire the person. So it's part of the hiring process.
And this would be part of the licensure process. We would
This would
put
be
it
part of the
more on
licensure
the licensure
process.
than on the school district.
So in particular, a district wouldn't have to wait for fingerprinting results to come back to formally offer a person a job. Currently, you have to do that unless extenuating circumstances is within 30 days of the start of the school school year, you can make a contingent hire, contingent on the results of a fingerprinting examination. But basically, it has to be done before the hire process. So it extends the hiring process under most circumstances to wait for a fingerprint result to come back from the company that does it. This is an attempt to sort of do that up front.
Right, and take a little bit of the administrative burden off of the schools, right?
School system.
Right.
We have learned a lot about
Dr. Pavlicek and I have been fingerprinting.
the code of laws in various different states.
So, I already made the motion.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I did. I said I made a motion that we approve Resolution 4, fingerprinting.
Second.
Motioned by Ms. Padera, seconded by Mr. Zulus. Any discussion? Any more discussion? On the motion, all in favor? It's unanimous.
I should keep track of these. Okay. So, yes on everything so far. Reinstitution of earmarking. Well, so, yeah, I was leaning towards yes on this one, but, you know, after some lengthy discussion with Mr. Zulus at the beginning of this meeting, I think that I would not be in favor of recommending this. So I would recommend that we vote no on the reinstitution of earmarking.
This is your
Resolution 5.
Motion by Ms. Padera, seconded by Ms. Kelly.
Somebody
Ms.
explain this to me?
Bagley-Jones. Mr. Zulus, would you like to?
Mr. Zulus?
Weigh in here?
Quick bullets. I know, but I don't, what's a federal,
He's going to need some big words.
I'm going to butcher this. But my understanding is that the federal government has got away from earmarking funds for specific projects to limit the possibility of pork barrel, what they used to call excessive pork, going to one congressperson and one senator in one district. And so they don't do that as much anymore. And so now apparently the MASC wants to say, well, we should do that again. The federal government should do that again because school districts have benefited from it. That's, if anybody can do better than that, please do. I don't. Okay.
I already made the motion.
Yes, you did. On the motion. All in favor?
abstain.
501.
Okay, 2 more. Resolution 6, unfunded mandates and new testing. I would recommend that we vote in favor of Resolution 6.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Padera, seconded by Ms. Bagley-Jones. Discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Okay, pretty much similar along those lines. Resolution 7, assessment system in Massachusetts. I would recommend that we vote in favor of Resolution 7.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Padera, seconded by Ms. Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Next job.
Thank you, Ms. Padera.
Thank you.
Have they turned off the air here in the high school?
Can't believe so.
School's shutting down on the roundup. We were supposed to end at 10.
Yeah, right.
Soon they'll shut off the lights.
I'll be sure to let everyone know, because I know it will be on your minds from now until the day of the conference, what happens with all these resolutions. I will. Of live streaming coverage, maybe.
Yeah, right. A quick strategic planning update. As you might recall, we went out for a second RFP on strategic planning. The first round, we talked with a number of different firms and did not find anyone that we thought satisfactorily met our needs. On the second round, we got 2 bids, one from a bidder that was rejected during the first round of proposals, but The two cost proposals were for $79,000 and $150,000 respectively. Both of those were well outside what we thought was reasonable, and more importantly, neither of the firms we thought presented the kind of expertise and project plan that seemed to what we had in mind. So we do plan to go forward with developing a strategic plan. We're going to try to roll it into the district goal that we approved for a rolling 3-year plan. We're going to ask Dr. Pavlicek to do a number of things that relate to the initial groundwork for that, and the committee that was reviewing proposals, Steve Paxia, who's a Tucker parent that has some higher ed strategic planning experience, Member Kelly, Member Zulis, Superintendent, and myself are going to try to engage some pro bono assistance, and we'll be back to you with a more detailed project plan and hopefully some information on expertise we've been able to secure. But more on that a little later in the year. Finance Subcommittee?
Yes, sorry. Approval of vendor warrants. Dr. Pavlicek?
We have a vendor warrant, number 16, dated October 16th, which only for a little while will still be tomorrow, in the amount of $318,136.73.
So I would move approval of warrant number 16 in the dollar amount that Dr. Pavlicek just read off.
Second?
Is that the most recent one, Dr. Pavlicek?
Yes, it is.
All those in favor? Whoa,
What? No.
that could be a problem.
Well,
Looks like we've got 3 votes.
so I need to abstain because I haven't seen it yet. Can we do it at the next meeting, or do we need to?
We need to do it up in Town Hall tomorrow.
No, I know that, but we sometimes we approve them after.
If someone's abstaining, 3 votes passes.
Yeah, I think it should, yeah. If it's just, I'm going to be abstaining.
I'm
so,
abstaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So I
so
think it'll
if
be
someone's
okay.
abstaining, 3 votes
Probably
is sufficient.
three abstentions, right?
Who's voting? Me, Kristen, who else?
Oh, abstain.
I'm in favor.
Oh.
I signed it.
All right.
Okay. Oh, you signed it?
I did.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, because I went through it page by page.
I mean, I'll still do it, but.
Oh, okay.
Oops.
It's getting a little late.
Once more, on the motion, all in favor? 3-0 opposed, abstained, 3 abstentions. 303.
The next item is the FY 16 capital request.
Correct.
Right? Are we doing a presentation, or how are we handling
I
this?
can speak to them.
Oh, sure.
So you have before you 2 charts entitled School Technology Capital Request and School Facilities Capital Request. These are the rolling 5-year plan that we submit every year to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, but I direct your attention to fiscal 16, which is labeled year 1 in the column, year 1 column there. Under school technology, the first priority is the virtualization of the servers. This is an upgrade to our servers and to the operating system that the servers runs on. It is split into 2 years because the feeling was we couldn't get that done in a single year. The second priority, which are a number of 2s you see there, relate to the iPads that you heard about earlier. The idea is to get as many of those as possible into the hands of teachers, which we are still a little behind on. And as you can see, 2 iPad carts with 30 iPads allocated to SPED to improve our use of technology there. Priority 3 is the annual replacement of PCs, and I think those are the major priorities and the ones that are likely to be approved by the Capital Committee. On the facilities side, the number one priority, according to Mr. Ritchie, is the upgrade of the controls, HVAC controls at the Pierce, which he thinks is long overdue. Second priority is the security camera upgrades at the high school. Those are interior cameras, and they're areas of the high school that we have blind spots in that we're looking to fix as quickly as possible. The Brooks Field track is 11 years old, and it is well in need of repairs. So that's the third priority there. The one correction on this form is that you'll see the fourth priorities are security, what are entitled security cameras. That's actually a misnomer. Those are exterior cameras for the 4 elementary schools. And we do think that's important, but the title security cameras is a little misleading. So we'll be correcting that on the form. But entertain a motion to approve these requests.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Zulus, seconded by Ms. Kelly. Ms. Kelly?
Just one question I think we had asked, or I had asked at the Finance Subcommittee, was around the virtualized servers
Yes.
and the splitting of it in 2 years.
As I said, the answer from Mr. Patterson was that we couldn't get that all done in 1 year, so he elected to split it into 2 years. It may be because we'll need to, when you do that kind of replacement, you need to run in parallel for a while, so you couldn't just take the servers all out. So I think that's probably, has something to do with it, but his answer was, we need 2 years to get it done.
Got it. Okay.
Ms. Sharon?
I have a question, or it's actually more a comment about the capital expense request and how it goes forward, because in prior years, the facilities subcommittee always got the capital improvement from Mr. Ritchie, and it went through us first and then went to, as a part of the finance subcommittee was reported out there. But this was always, as was security, so I guess this is a conversation for another time, but I feel like there are things that used to be in facilities subcommittee that our responsibilities are becoming less and less, and they're being put over to another subcommittee, and I think in the very near future, it would be helpful for our committee to be able to have a charge of what exactly it is you would like the facilities subcommittee to do if these other responsibilities are going to continue to move away from us, and let us know that that's the way it's going to be. So, thank you.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor? Unanimous. Quarterly grants reports.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to mention one thing on this, and that is that, once again, the free cash for this year's fiscal budget is considerable. And in terms of, especially after the presentations today, professional development dollars that might be considered one-time expenses to get present teaching staff sort of a jump start, and we've talked about this in years past, maybe over the summer, with regard to technology, et cetera. I'm hoping that that would be considered perhaps for potential use of one-time money if it becomes available to us. But as capital expenses are, and I don't know how it balances out, or who recommends how much gets spent on capital versus this one-time expense bucket. But I guess I'd just like to raise the possibility of really infusing a considerable amount of professional development dollars if possible, even if it might be at the expense of some of these capital expenses. I guess that's a point I wanted to raise.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we? Oh, the quarterly grants report.
If I might?
Yes,
We
please.
have in your packet, but briefly, Dr. Karen Spalding wrote this first grant to the Blue Hills Charitable Trust from the Blue Hills Bank into the field for $9,944.65. And this, it's called Into the Field, Creating Environmental Research Experiences for Students, and it's to support the field work around environmental sciences for the iSTEM students in grade 7 in the curriculum of that new course that was put in. And then the second grant was written by Jackie Morgan, and this grant we're working, Dr. Pavlicek and Bill Ritchie are working with Dr. Spalding and Jackie Morgan, but this was for a cart and equipment that we've seen, Jackie Morgan's last grant, double the number of breakfasts served at Milton High School because of the whole, I think she told the story at this committee about the whole cart. And the way high school students see this option and increasing, our goal is to reach what Milton High School is doing. So applause to both of these people for these initiatives, and Jackie Morgan for this equipment for the Pierce School to increase the breakfast program.
Just before we leave finance, I know end-of-year financials is off, but one thing, the finance subcommittee did review the end-of-year report, and at its meeting voted to recommend that this committee authorize the chair to sign it on behalf of the committee. So if it's not out of order, that report needs to go into the state, and it would be appreciated if we get a motion tonight to authorize the chair to sign the final page on it so we can submit it.
So moved.
We did at the subcommittee, but we need to do it for
Oh, I
the
thought
full
we did
committee.
it at the last school committee meeting. My
No.
meetings are blended together, sorry.
Second. We didn't accept the grants everywhere.
Motion by Ms. Bagley Jones, seconded by Ms. Padera. Any discussion? On the motion, all in favor? It's unanimous.
May I ask a question?
With a vote from the superintendent.
Ask you a question. On these grants, didn't you want to vote to
Right, we
accept
have to
these
accept
grants?
them.
We're
We
trying
have to
make
vote to
this
accept
quarterly.
Yes, well, Dr. Pavlicek took us off course.
But it didn't say vote, so I thought we were done.
Right.
So I would move that
Ms.
we
Sheridan?
She can make the motion, go ahead.
move that we accept both grants from the Blue Hills Bank Charitable Trust to the Pierce Middle School in the amount of $9,944.65 and $4,000. And to be
I'll
put
second
into
it.
the appropriate, what are we doing, revolving
Arts and
account?
No, they're going grant accounts.
Grant accounts, okay.
Motion by Ms. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Sheridan. Ms. Sheridan?
I have a question. So I don't know when this quarter ends, but I was at Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital a few weeks ago when Milton High School students received a grant for, I don't remember exactly what it was, but for some work. The student leaders, peer leaders.
that thing.
Do those grants come under this as well? It was just like 2 weeks ago, so it might be
Yeah.
outside of this grant cycle is what I'm asking.
It was $1,500 for the health leaders, the student, yeah.
These are all grants that are coming to you, so that money hasn't been submitted yet.
I remember seeing something on it, so I'll double check. We'll put it on the next report in any case.
Just
I
a-
may have just
Let's
missed
check.
the end of the quarter.
Ms. Padera?
Just a point of clarification, though, this, the second grant isn't from the Blue Hills Bank Charitable Trust, is it? It's from the Fuel Place 60?
Yeah, good catch.
Some-
Oh, the New England Dairy, good pick.
Yeah, so they're not both from the Blue
I
Hills
wondered
Bank,
about
just the
that.
first one is. I was wondering how they got involved.
Wow.
Just reading.
Generous.
That's not right.
That's very, at 11 o'clock at night, good pick.
Right there.
Good. It's a good pick.
apologize.
Thank you.
4 hours.
So Ms. Downs, can you make sure the vote reflects the accurate information?
People in the vote?
Not yet.
No. On the motion,
That's why we end at 10.
all in favor? It's unanimous.
I think that's all for us.
Old business, we don't have any new meeting, next meeting agenda items. Ms. Bagley-Jones and Ms. Kelly.
I don't know if this is an agenda item, but I would like to ask if we can have a small study group on the bus fees, not just the fees, but the misinformation and information that's out there, the variables, to make recommendations on the actual bus fee. And I would like to have that either discussed, or I'll bring a proposal about it, but I'd like to talk about it at the next meeting, which is when we're supposed to vote on the bus fee, but I think there's more information to be gathered and verified.
Such as?
There's a lot of variables across different parts of towns. How do we make those decisions? How do we get the police involved with this? There's misinformation about which communities charge and don't charge, have a family cap and don't have. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I just think it would be worthwhile to have parents and the police as a town issue involved in this, instead of it's just being about us setting the bus fee, because it's not just the fee that's involved in this. So I see from everyone's faces that it's like, but I just feel like there needs to be more study put into it, and I don't know how to get that to happen.
So let's take those one at a time. We've started a discussion with the police chief. The question of safety, I think, is I'd put that under that. That is, how do you make sure that the intersections are safe? It seems to me the police chief, who's also the chair of the traffic commission, is the right person to have those discussions with. We have gathered some information on other towns.
Yes, we have.
So I think we have the information. There are different opinions about how relevant that information is, and as I said in my email, without information on what their total budget is and what resource decisions they've made or budget priorities they've made, it's difficult to give that information much weight.
Yes.
That is, unless you know exactly what the budget situation and the budget priorities are. So they don't charge for transportation. Okay, so what other trade-offs have they made? I think that we need to decide whether this is well, so if you separate the safety, then the question is, well, so do we simply want the bus fees to be lower, which is a decision we can make. But as Mr. Zula said the last meeting, the question of should the bus fees be equal is a separate question from which streets are safer than others and what do we do about that.
And I apologize, I wasn't trying to have a discussion about this, especially 11 o'clock at night.
No.
I just think...
But you seem like, I want to make clear, or be clear on what you think the additional work is that needs to be done, because I think...
I don't know exactly, but I have some ideas, and I don't mean to set this discussion up at 11 o'clock at night, but if you vote for it as is, I would vote against the bus fees, because I feel like there is more of information that we have that isn't getting out there to the regular public. And so that's just my opinion. Everyone else can disagree with me, but I feel like maybe we vote for the bus fees, but then I want to see some more, just like Linda Lee brought up about the facilities. I want to see it vetted more outside of this public meeting and have input. I want to sit with Richard Wells and other people, like Glenn had all this valuable information, and pull it together, because it does not feel pulled together from all of those town-wide issues. For us, it may be, but it sure doesn't feel like it is for the rest of the town, or other people who have spoken to us. So.
Would you have some time to devote to that?
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it if I wouldn't offer myself and Mr. Zulis. Representing, both sides of the town.
Well, no, I was actually just going to make a suggestion. My view on this is that a discussion of the fees and an analysis of the fees should be in the context of the overall budget. None of the other fees are set for next year. right? And now we want to set these fees for next year. Seems to me that's premature. That discussion, seems to me, should take place in a discussion of all the fees, athletic fees, which are high, all the fees, all the caps, family caps, which are very high, and in the context of the budget discussion. That's why I saw that as a separate issue.
Right.
And that could be considered when we talk about the whole budget.
Right.
So that's-
I don't, and all I wanted to say is I'd like a forum for figuring out how to share some of this information. I didn't want to debate it now, especially, and it's not on the agenda, and people will feel like we're talking about it behind, so I just wanted to say I would volunteer to work on some of what I see as some information. Are there other people that would like to do that? Or how do I get that going? Because I can't just go on my own and say, hey, talk to me.
I can tell you that I've spent numerous hours with Dr. Pavlicek about bus fees, and he's
Right.
an information source you might want to seek out.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not, it's so late and I don't feel like I'm getting my point across. Could you help me with this?
I think what you're saying is there's a lot of information here.
Yes.
But it's not out there yet.
Thank you.
Somehow we need to get the information that we've just shared publicly out to more people than we're here listening, and we need to listen to what they say.
Yes. Thank you.
And
I don't know the best way to do that.
that's a very good process to go forward with, and I think it's great that you volunteered to do that, and I'm not sure what form it should take,
I don't
Mr.
either.
Chairman. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, so I think you've raised two important points. One is, let's figure out a communication strategy for how we get this information out there, which is something I'm going to be talking about when we talk about, I'll be talking about that later, but because I think that's important. The second opportunity might be if some of the residents follow through on their desire to engage us offline, that if we have this, agree on what this communication strategy and what the key points are, that would be a time when we could present some of that information to them, understanding that we need a way to get it out to everyone. Because I think that we need to figure out
So could I make a
where we're
suggestion?
going on this.
Can I just talk to people up and put a proposal, we're discussing it now, and I don't want to do that. So,
No, we're discussing how to proceed.
right.
The issue, I think, is the timing. So if we indeed want to take a vote
On the bus fees.
on the bus fees, we want to have more information out to the public and receive information back from the public before that happens. I think that's sort of the decision tree
Right.
at this point.
And we have either 3 weeks to do that, or I'm not clear on what Mr. Zulus is suggesting. If we're going to have that discussion in the context of the budget, then maybe we have even more time, I don't know.
Yeah, if I wasn't clear, that's what I was suggesting. I think the fees should be in the context of the budget. And to me, that's a separate issue as to whether the fees should be uniform across town. That's,
Which is
I
not
know
the same.
not everyone agrees with that.
Why don't we talk offline?
May I offer another agenda item?
Yep.
Thank you. It's been a while since we looked at our list of upcoming dates of school committee meetings and the proposed agendas, and I just wondered if we could put that out there again for next meeting, please.
Sure.
Can we actually have that included in our packet? Like,
Yes, I just looked for it, I'm surprised it's not there.
I'm sorry, maybe it's in the folders?
it's
Can
not.
it be in the
It's not.
electron, oh, it isn't, okay, just in the electronic. Just another agenda item. So can we get some direction on the special education program and whether we're going to review it, whether we're going to review part of it? I just think we need to, I mean, I think we've
have
got...
that down, if I don't mean to interrupt you, for Tuesday's Finance Subcommittee for a proposal.
Great. And then I'm hoping that we can vote, because we haven't yet, the sort of final, not final, but the FY15 line item, we haven't really gotten that budget to us before this body. I'm sorry?
FY14.
No, FY15.
Both.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, FY15
We have
this
both.
year. We need to just vote those or whatever, how many of our budget line items those are. hopefully that will be for our next school committee meeting.
I'll have it for Tuesday morning.
Great.
Finance.
Thank you.
Anything else? We are adjourned.